to YouTube. Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld. I'm here with Neil Gore, the founder of Portal to Ascension, and we are promoting the upcoming Starseed Summit. And one of our featured speakers on that summit is Dr. Richard Horowitz, the author of the new upcoming book, Starseed Reva Evolution. Ever Revolution. But Neil, why don't we just give a little quick snapshot of the upcoming conference? If you want to pull it up, do I have to make you a co-host, or you're not a co-host, right?
Yeah, I need to give me permission.
Okay, here we go. Okay, you are now
Got it.
co-host. And then we'll go into Richard's little mini presentation and what he's going to be doing.
So
Okay.
we are going live on Saturday and Sunday with this 2-day Starseed Summit. And I'm really excited, and I'm happy that, Alan, you called me on yesterday and today, because now I get to have some insight on speakers that I haven't, I don't really know about, and that you're introducing me to. So I learned a lot of it from Linda yesterday. It's pretty amazing. I'm excited to learn from Richard. And this event is taking place this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 10:30 and 10:31. It's going to be all day. We're going to end each day with a panel. And if you sign up to this event, it's unlimited replay access. And this event is basically a call to starseeds. What is the starseed message? What does this even mean? What is our connection to the cosmos? So we have a lot of amazing people. You can just see on this flyer here. I haven't even counted how many people are on this event for a while now, but definitely around 12 plus individuals here. I think 15 people. And we're just going to go deep into this awareness, and all these individuals really have bring a different facet when it comes to this starseed information. Just for example, Phil Gruber talking about the root races, and then also just giving us a download. Like when Phil speaks, it's just a pure download, really. And Kimora Jones, she's going to be sharing her insights with these beings, but through the lens of the artwork that she creates, which is pretty. The only way to explain it is beyond this world and multidimensional.
It's multidimensional. Kimora Jones, definitely worth seeing.
She's become one of my favorite people. I love her so much.
Yeah.
And then, Flo Karuna, who has a Instagram page with 150,000 called the Starseeds. Literally, it's called Starseeds. And he has a course on starseed awareness and the different civilizations. So, and maybe you could just mention a couple of people here.
Well, Marina Sarin is a walking, living starseed. Joan of Angels has been with us for a long time. I don't know Melody Ware, but we'll get to her. And today's special guest, Dr. Richard Horowitz, is there. Linda Bachman is talking about interplanetary civilizations and consciousness. And Jody Sirota, who's been a channel to other dimensional doorways for a long time.
And just to give insight from what I learned yesterday, like Linda was talking about through her clients and regression, she's realizing that a lot of people have personality traits in this life that they actually adopted from the civilizations that they're from that are beyond this earth. And by understanding what these past or simultaneous lives are and the lessons and what happened there, you can heal these aspects in the now. So it's really beautiful how we're going into the past, really, even though that's just a construct, it's really simultaneously happening. But then we're utilizing that awareness to really bring peace and harmony into this moment so that we can be empowered individuals and truly be the caretakers of ourselves, each other, and the entire planet.
And definitely the planet. This is where Dr. Richard Horowitz comes in. We're going to get to him. To sign up for this conference, go to portaltoascension.org, right?
Yep, exactly. And just go to online events right there. It'll be the first event.
So the reason I wanted to have Richard on is because he takes a whole different angle look. He's written this book, this novel, and his big concern, if from what I've heard from you, Richard, is climate change. We have to save our planet if we're really going to save ourselves. So, Richard, why don't you go into, like, you're a mainstream doctor, you're a regular guy, you're not into the woo-woo stuff, and yet, here you are in the company of these people on really on the cutting edge. So what inspired you? Talk about this book, Starseed Revolution, that you
Yeah,
created.
thanks, Alan. So just by the way, may I plug your book just for a second? Because
of course,
when I read your book, There's always questions that most of us have as far as like, we don't feel like we fit here. We feel like we just don't fit in. There's something different about us. And I have to admit that after I read your book, even though I used to make jokes to people like, I can't possibly be from this planet. It's like, I don't think this way. I would not destroy, I wouldn't shit where I eat and then destroy the planet. It's kind of like, I read the stories and of course, all the great authors that you had who contributed. And it was like, yeah, I'm not from this place. I kind of suspected it.
Exactly. So you said you sent me a blurb. I didn't see the blurb.
I put it on my Facebook page for Starseed Revolution, but I'll send you another one.
Oh, okay. I'll look for it there. So no, I'm so happy because what I want to do with Portal to Ascension to help Neil is to expand our audience into the mainstream. We've been, if you've been in this kind of spiritual community, you start to see the same people everywhere. And it's great because like, oh, there's that person again. But I think to broaden this community to people like you who are much more mainstream and can reach a whole other audience through your creative work is important for us expanding the ideals that we all have, how to save the earth, how to evolve consciousness, how to be more than what we've been told. And I know, so how did you awaken to your, not from being from planet Earth outlook?
Well, again, when I was reading your book, one of the things you talked about in your book, Making Contact, is that a lot of us come in with missions. And one of the things, of course, with Horowitz, you can figure out what my lineage is. So, I was a yeshiva boy. I used to sit in bed and pray to God when I was young. This was normal for me. And I was about 6 years old and I was in prayer. I wouldn't call it meditation, but no one told me when I was 6 that I couldn't speak to God, but I used to hear things. And I didn't realize at the time that I was a medical intuitive. So I had no idea that I actually even had that ability. I would just speak and I would hear things and figured, oh, everybody does that. So when I was 6 and I was in bed, I heard, and I thought it was God speaking to me, who said basically, you've come to save the world. To which I replied at a 6-year-old, like, I beg your pardon? Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, I heard it again. You've come to save the world. And, it's one of those things when you're young, you remember certain things that happen to you that are very, very clear. The voice, the way I heard it, it was only that one time at 6 years old that I heard it this way. And then my parents got divorced. And because of the trauma from it, like the communication got cut for me. And when I was kind of searching for meaning as I was going through college, I was studying at that point Indian philosophies. I was reading Ram Dass, Be Here Now. I started studying, a lot of different yoga philosophies, Hindu philosophies. Ultimately, I ended up doing my medical school training in Belgium. And in my 4th year of medical school, after doing 2 years, 3 years of transcendental meditation with the TM City technique, which is the one where there's the yogic flying, where they teach you to levitate. I thought like the power of the mind. How cool would it be if people could actually do this? And I figured, I'm meditating. It's great for medical school. It's stressful. I went to the UK. I went to Kent, England, to this, castle where they actually had the training. Nothing was happening to me, by the way, when first I started meditating. And then what happened is I fasted for 24 hours and my Kundalini started to open. And at that point, I understood the breath started changing, the energy started opening up. And I realized there was a lot more going on, and I kept expanding at that point. But I noticed that after about a few years of doing it, I didn't feel like more loving, more compassionate. It was like, all right, I'm chill, like it's great for medical school. But at that point in my 4th year, my friend Bill Horowitz in New York City said, this Tibetan Lama is living three blocks from where you're living in Belgium, in Brussels. Why don't you go check him out? And it was April back in, what year is this? I went to med school, 79, let's see, it was 1984, 77 to 84, it's 81. Lama Gendon Rinpoche was there. He had been visiting from the south of France. I met him for the first time and they said, oh yeah, he's upstairs. Why don't you go say hello? I walked into the room. His translator was there. And basically what happened with him is that he took my head, he like put it to his head, did this blessing for 2 minutes, finished with this like, oh. I'm like, I don't know what's going on at this point. I bow to him. I walk outside the door. He follows me outside into the hallway. He looks me up and down, walks around me, starts laughing hysterically, and walks back into the room. Now, this is a little bit confusing because it's like he saw something about me, which obviously I didn't understand at the time. And then I started studying with Kala Rinpoche and Akam Rinpoche and the Venerable Trungpa Rinpoche and Cedar Rinpoche and His Holiness the Karmapa. And I got like 200 Tibetan initiations in the last 40 years. And we studied, my wife and I, for 10 years doing Mahamudra meditation, which was a form of meditation to realize your full enlightened potential. And at this Starseed conference coming up this weekend, I'm going to give people the 40-year download in a half hour of this meditation, of what this is, because now, because of what's happening with the climate, the Earth is in great danger. And about 3.5 years ago, when I was reading the climate science during the last administration, I realized we were really, really in deep trouble. And of course, the administration was denying there was a problem. So I went into meditation. I prayed to my spiritual family and I said, what can I do? What do you want me to do? And I heard, not exactly as I did at 6 years old, but similar, write a book. To which I responded, why would a Lyme doctor who's been doing this for 35 years with 13,000 Lyme patients, why would anybody want to read a climate book by a Lyme doctor? And then I heard, no, not any climate book, write a science fiction climate change book. To which I responded, really? And they said, yes, and make it funny. So I repeated it to make sure I got the download, because this is what clearly came to me. And over 6 months, I went upstairs into the meditation room. I opened in meditation, and literally I got a 450-page download. The entire book just downloaded over 6 months. My wife heard me upstairs laughing hysterically because as it was coming through, it was so funny what was coming in. I could barely contain myself. So I got the whole manuscript. I got a couple of great editors, Jeffrey Gerard, Steve Saffel, and my friend who's down the block, Margaret Donor, who's a massage therapist. She wrote books on starseeds. So the initial idea of where it came from Margaret, because she had been talking about the family of light, the family of dark. Are you a starseed? I read the descriptions. It was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely not from here. I think I might be Arcturian. So in the book, I'm an Arcturian 13th level healer, doctor healer. And I basically, on my website, www.starseed-revolution.com, I've done videos, YouTube videos playing the main character. And what's been really fascinating, I send them to my patients, who are used to me being very straight lace, classical doctor. They know a little of my humor. But I'm playing this character and they're sending me back emails like, hey, doc, my ribs hurt from laughing so hard. We had no idea you were that funny. And I'm thinking to myself, really, I really haven't shared my sense of humor at all at this point. So people have been enjoying it. I think some are confused, but for the most part.
So you use humor, you use the climate change, you use the starseed, all to make a point about how to save the planet. Is that it?
The kids were coming into my office with climate grief, telling me, after they got over from Lyme, I said, what are you going to do with your life? And they would say,
just to back up for a second, you developed certain protocols for treating Lyme disease, and you also got that sort of some of it intuitively because, people have tried everything. So that's helped thousands of people.
Right. So what happened with that? It's interesting you bring that up.
Yeah.
So about 7 years ago, Johns Hopkins researchers discovered that Lyme, the name of the bug is Borrelia burgdorferi, is a persister bacteria. So I knew that Lyme persisted. In other words, that you would treat it with antibiotics, it would come back.
Right.
But being a persister bacteria means it's like tuberculosis. It's like leprosy. So I went into meditation and I asked, okay, if it's a persister bacteria, what should I be doing? And I heard, go look at the drugs you used when you were in medical school and residency at Mount Sinai, New York, which were tuberculosis type drugs. The drug that came to me was dapsone. Dapsone with rifampin is how they treat leprosy. So what I did is I added doxycycline, classic drug used for Lyme, added it to rifampicin, started playing with dosids, and lo and behold, it started kicking the Lyme out. My wife, who was sick for like 30 years with Lyme, after doing this 8-week protocol, well. So
you're getting directed in your medicine from these higher levels, would you say?
Correct. I just don't talk. I don't talk to people about it though.
No, of course not. But then the star seed now, how do you define star seed?
So when I was with my teacher, Cedar Rinpoche, I asked him at some point, and we would have these great philosophical discussions. We would say, he would say things like, there are many multiverses, there are many worlds. It's not, he basically would admit all of this, said, we're not the only beings. Of course, there are billions and billions of galaxies and planets. In fact, when I was in India at Dharamsala and in Delhi with him, we were about 50 of us in a room with him. And he said, you've all been Lyme doctors. And it was like, I beg your pardon? He loves joking with me. It's like, we've all been Lyme doctors. It's like mind blowing. It's like, you're telling me we've had so many incarnations in past lives that all of us have been on worlds where there was Lyme disease. And not only were there, we were doctors treating it. It's like that alone is like mind blowing. So he basically told us, of course, we're not the only ones around. And if you think about it, at least in my case, I came in, really just connected from the beginning, like speaking to God, listening. As time's gone on, I think my spiritual family has expanded, I would call it a little bit, with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and even the Christ. I mean, many different spiritual beings I've connected with to try and help, because the main thing about the Tibetan teachings is bodhicitta, work for the benefit of others, work for the benefit of the world, right? Have loving kindness and compassion. And what's great about this is that when climate change started coming up and I looked at the science, I realized there were solutions, but no one was going to read a hard science book by a Lyme doctor. So it best made sense to use a science fiction format. And I love science fiction. When I was young, I think I told you this, Alan, I used to read, Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. And I met Arthur C. Clarke when I was about 9-10 years old at a friend's house. My stepfather was a surgeon. He worked on a naturalist who was friends with Arthur. I got to meet him, who of course was friends with Stanley Kubrick. So I had kind of a sci-fi comic book thing going on in my early life. And it was always about superheroes saving the planet. And it's always felt
Me too. And I think Neil maybe too. We're all science fiction. Right. So talk about then environmental, what you call it, grief, trauma. These young kids, after you healed them from Lyme, they would also talk about, what is that exactly, environmental trauma?
Well, so the thing is that these kids were coming in literally with climate grief. And I had never really thought about it before, but a lot of the kids realized that the earth was in peril, that what was happening is the climate scientists were giving us about an 8 or 10 year window to turn this around, or some of this was going to be irreversible. And when I started looking at the science, the permafrost, which is no longer permanently frozen at this point in the Arctic, contains twice as much carbon dioxide and methane as there is right now in the atmosphere. So as the carbon dioxide starts going up with the greenhouse gases and it's melting the permafrost, what's happening is it's starting to heat up the planet. The Arctic is already twice to almost 3 times warmer than other parts of the planet. Siberia had like a couple of years in a row with 100-degree summers, right? Which is unheard of at this point. So the climate scientists are giving us 8 to 10 years. These kids obviously have been following the science. They realize that the world governments have been doing nothing. Like, it's code red for humanity. They're doing nothing. So I decided I should look up the scientific solutions, and there are. And they're in Starseed Revolution. I actually did it as a, I don't want to give away too much, but it's like a Broadway show, literally, to highlight it. And right now it's in front of a film producer to actually see if this can be made into a movie. And I outlined all of the solutions, but also using the mind, using the power of the mind, because right now everyone's thinking that if the world governments and Biden and China and Russia and India, if they don't do it, how can we possibly shift the situation that we're in? And I started thinking about it. 40 years of studying with these spiritual teachers, both through the Tibetan lineage, through the Hindu lineage, through Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, I realized that the power of the mind might be able to be harnessed in a way that we could all go into harmoniously at the same time, meditative states, which is what I'm going to share at the Starseed Conference, get into these synchronous states. And what I've learned from them is when you're in this open, relaxed state, and I'll teach people how to do it, you take a seed, you place it into the field of consciousness. And this seed, when you plant it and you let it go, and it's with positive emotions, like if you're seeing it already happening with joy and gratitude, and you're feeling it, and you're looking at the clear, empty nature of mind while you're visualizing this for the benefit of all humanity, that by multiple people doing this at the same time, it starts to create at this point a coherence, a vibration. And there's scientific research showing, in fact, it was published by Harvard of all places and Hervet Benson, that in Washington, D.C. and in Israel and in Lebanon during the 7-Day War, they had these meditators doing these city techniques. And they found that when enough people, it was actually the square root of 1% of the population doing these techniques changed. There was less deaths, the war calmed down, the economics got better, there was less crime. Like people meditating were starting to shift external reality, and it was published in scientific journals. So I realized with these 40 years of learning from these enlightened masters and having received teachings on Mahamudra, which is basically like the quickest, fastest path to awakening. And that's why the book, Starseed Revolution, The Awakening, I'm giving a lot of these type of meditation techniques so that after the book is out, we're going to do these global meditation techniques to try and ascend, to try and get a vibration going on the planet so that even if the world leaders immediately are not acting with a code red, because we've only got about 8 to 10 years, that maybe we, the motivated 1% of the global population who does this, we may be able to change things from the inside out.
Wow. How does that sound, Neil? How's that?
That sounds so amazing. Because yeah, exactly. It doesn't take the entire world or 70%. We can shift the reality with our own vibration and frequency if we synergize and harmonize together. And I feel like people kind of like can understand that, but we haven't implemented it as a knowing 100%. So like as we do that, there's science behind it all, like you just shared, right? And the Maharishi effect, and there's all this like documentation about what's actually occurred. So if we inform people and they're educated about this, unfortunately, if the media said it, people will probably adopt it immediately. But we're doing it from a grassroots level. So I feel that's what needs to be done is we have to realize everything is vibration, we're vibration, and we're able to shift our external reality through collective meditations like this. And I feel that's going to be really instrumental in creating this new world when we all come together and do what you're saying here.
Right. So Richard, if we want to save the earth, where do the star seeds from other planets come in? And Neil actually happens to be Arcturian too. But anyway, where does the star seeds from these other worlds come in to help us? It's up to us as humans, or would be humans.
So what happens in the book, but without giving away too much of the plot line, is that what happens in the book, there are sleeping star seeds on the planet. And in this major like medicine wheel ceremony, we wake up the star seeds. We wake them up to who they really are. And it's what's really funny about this, and you know this, both of you, through synchronicity, that sometimes you think about something and all of a sudden in the outside world, you see it on bumper stickers, it starts showing up on the television. We've all had this. Well, about a week ago, in the New York, I think it was the New York Times or Washington Post, and you'll see this when the book comes out. In fact, I sent you the book, Alan, so thank you for reviewing it. There is a medicine wheel ceremony. I'm actually using Native American great wisdom. I've also, by the way, done shamanism. Without going into all of this, I've studied with the Huichol shamans in Mexico. So over the years, I've kind of had a broad range of healing techniques that I've learned, integrative medicine, shamanic learning. So there's a shamanic ceremony that takes place in the book, and we're waking up the star seeds. And what I hope to do is wake people up to not only what is going on with the climate, wake them up to their true nature, to the power of who they actually are. And basically what Siddha Rinpoche said when he came to the West, he asked his teacher, His Holiness the Karmapa, he said, what do you want me to teach, these people in America and in Europe? Like, what should I teach? And he said, the most important thing for you to teach them is that they are already enlightened. They are the Buddha. It's not a question of becoming the Buddha. It's not a question of becoming enlightened. You're already enlightened. It's just there's clouds in front of the sun and you can't see the light. So when my wife and I took these 10 years of Mahamudra teachings, we did this in Maine. It's the only time I've camped out because I'm scared to death of ticks. We would like put tick spray around the tent and, make sure we were safe.
At least you know what to do if you do get a tick bite. So,
yeah. So my wife and I, 10 years in a row, we went up to Maine. We were there for a week of these Mahamudra downloads from Trungpa Rinpoche, who is he teaches the Dalai Lama. And he was in Tibet in the 1950s. This is amazing. It's a great story because you probably know Pema Chodron. She's a very famous Buddhist
Pema.
author.
Yeah, Pema. Yes.
So Pema's teacher is Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and Trungpa Rinpoche were in Tibet at the same time when this particular Kempo Gongshar, woke up. And this is a true story. It was in the 1950s before the Chinese invasion. The teachings that were given to Pema from Chogyam Trungpa and that we got from Venerable Trungpa Rinpoche came directly from this lineage from Kempo Gongshar, and I'm sharing them in the book. And it's basically, hey, Tibetans, you don't have time to go into 3-year retreat to meditate. This Lama woke up and said, geez, we've only got a few months. I'm going to download the quick, down and dirty, how to awaken and realize your enlightened nature. And I did my best in Starseed Revolution, The Awakening, of transmitting these teachings. So after the book is out, we're going to have hopefully a global meditation and ascension to try and make this actually into a reality.
Well, we should do it at Portal to Ascension because it has a great connection with, let's plan a global awakening ascension meditation with the Tibetan techniques there. But go back a little bit, I know, and we'll wrap it up because I don't want you to give too much away. I want people to tune in to Portal to Ascension. Go into like the Arcturian aspect of this thing you've created. So where does the Arcturians fit in? Yeah.
So when I was reading the descriptions of the star seeds, and again, this comes from my neighbor, Margaret Donor, who's written a bunch of starseed books. When I was reading it, I would go into the kitchen and say to my wife, honey, listen to the description of Arcturians. And she'd say, oh my God, that's you. And her name is Lemurian. All right. I won't get into all the details there.
Okay.
My wife is an intuitive also. She's a master astrologer. So right. She would figure out that, oh, I'm probably Pleiadian. It's looked like I love everyone, I'm here to love. And so right. I kind of got from Margaret's books that I'm Arcturian. And then as I was meditating, I realized I took on the persona of Prince Ian of Arcturus, who comes in basically in the year 2037 when the world has already had the first and second great climate change. And I hope my predictions are not true, but I have to tell you, when I started writing this 3 years ago, I was putting in the book that the world already was at 1.5, 1.6. And about 2 months ago, the WHO looked at the report from the IPCC, the International Panel of Climate Change, and they said we have a 40 to 50% chance of hitting 1.5. And it was
1.5. Wait, explain that. 1.5 what?
So 1.5 degrees centigrade above where we were in pre-industrial time. So right now.
What does that mean when the temperature raises? How does it affect everything?
So for every even 0.1 degrees of raising of centigrade, there's an exponential increase. Hurricanes, flooding, droughts, tornadoes, hailstorms, vector-borne diseases with tick-borne.
Fires, right?
Fires, wildfires. So what happens is what you're seeing right now in California, Alaska, the Midwest, where there's the droughts, there's the flooding, in New York City just recently, that is at 1.1 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels in the 1800s. They're now predicting that in the next 10 years, we've got about a 40 to 50% chance of hitting 1.5. This is not additive. This is exponential. This means that food, water supplies, breaking down of electricity, not being able to have medicines, Lyme and vector-borne diseases, West Nile, Zika, chikungunya, all of these things are going to spread while the grids go down, while national securities, there's going to be climate migrations with millions of people who have no food, who have no homes. It's going to be a humanitarian.
What can we do to stop this? Just give us a little bit, just because you're here.
So here's the thing. There are solutions. What's really sad, and this is why I had to write this book, the kids who came in with climate grief needed to know there was hope. There was true hope. and I found scientific solutions, and I put them in the book. And I'll give you one example.
Yes.
One of the people who gave me a quote from my book, his name is Dr. Mark Jacobson. He's at Stanford University. Mark wrote an article several years ago in the journal One Earth called A Roadmap for 139 countries to reach like zero, greenhouse gases within a certain number of years. And I spoke to Mark. His one article lays out the roadmap, how the world can do it. Elon Musk did the calculations. If you take a 100-mile by 100-mile stretch of desert in California, Arizona, Nevada, and you put solar panels with today's efficiency, you can basically get the entire United States off fossil fuels. If you do it in the Sahara, take 1.1% of the entire Sahara, which has sun, more than 13 hours a day. You put solar panels. There's now different methods of transmitting the electricity. You can power the entire world and get off fossil fuels. So it's possible. The problem is it's philosophical. The world governments, it's competition between the world governments. It's economics. We don't want to do it. And I don't think they really see that this is coming. And as an intuitive, when I'm listening into this, it's like, I can see what's going to be hitting, as do many people. It's going to be humanitarian disasters, but there are solutions, and I put them in the book.
And so the star seeds, and this is not a fiction, it's a reality. The star seeds are here to help wake people up to the fact that this earth is a valuable, precious jewel of the universe. I mean, it's a jewel.
And as you said in your book, Alan, and I read the stories from the New York Times years ago, when the UFOs would fly over the nuclear sites and all of a sudden there'd be no electricity and it would shut down, right? They wouldn't walk out and go, oh, by the way, stop playing around with nuclear and blowing yourself up. But they would give us messages just by like stopping. It's the same thing at this point. Now, I'm hoping, and I'll tell you, this is my greatest wish. So when the book comes out, it's February 15th is the release date. People will get the book. They will love it. They'll laugh. They'll learn. They'll ascend. They'll get the meditation. They'll get it. And that the aliens who've been kind of monitoring the planet, they're going to go, all right, Horowitz has now set it up for us. We can come down and help at this point with the digital technology. So, I mean, I don't know whether this is going to happen. I've got dreams about this. Or, something, maybe they'll just go to Sedona, where you are from time to time, which is, by the way, every time I go to Sedona, I speak to people and I said, you had any direct experiences? Like, I'll go to a bar, Cucina, which is on Oak Creek. It's like, oh my God, hey, John, tell Richard Horowitz here what happened 18 years ago when they came down.
Everyone's had a direct experience in Sedona. That's why people go to Sedona. So doesn't your book take place in Sedona somewhere?
It sure does. That's where it takes place.
Well, I've heard some great. So Richard, on this weekend, are you going to do a PowerPoint? What's your presentation going to be like?
So I'm going to do a PowerPoint. I'm also going to show a 6-minute YouTube video playing Prince Ian of Arcturus, which I think people would just have a really good laugh, because it's about 10 ways to tell if you are a starseed.
Oh, great.
So that's going to be a 6-minute video I embedded, but I'm going to do a PowerPoint, but I'm going to do the meditation. I'm going to give people the basics of the climate, a little bit, but most of it will actually be learning about these meditations so that even before the books comes out, people can start to practice and we'll get a sense of it.
Wow. So maybe this is not, go ahead, Neil.
I love that you're talking about serious topics with humor, because it's all about the vibration behind what you're speaking of. And a lot of times when we're talking about this stuff, we get serious or fall really deep into the fear. And from, what I feel is the universe is an unconditional Xerox machine. It just keeps giving you more of what you put out there. So if you're putting it out there with fear, there's a chance that it could just reflect that back. So having that laughter component to it, I really appreciate.
And it's interesting you say that, Neil, because one of the main points I made in the book, and most people know this, fear constricts your consciousness, right? Love, joy, generosity, caring for others expands your so it's like people are now in a fear-based reality of what's going to happen. It's going to constrict. We need to expand. We need to learn how to use the power of consciousness, which has been used by yogis and by great masters for thousands of years. And enough of us now need to do it to make a difference. And this, my prayer to the universe is, somehow I'm going to get 1% of the global population to do this, and we're all going to work together, and we're going to change it from the inside out.
And that's why Neil has dedicated really his life, his career, his energies to Portal to Ascension, because this is one way to change it. All of us coming together in community, sharing ideas and putting it out to the bigger population. So it's great. Someone writes on the chat, Dr. Horowitz is my sort of doctor. So, okay, don't give too much away, but, this is Neil's PowerPoint here. But Richard, the conclusions to the book, it's a happy ending. The Earth is saved, the cavalry comes in, the ETs arrive, and we live happily ever after. Is that?
Well, what it is that there is obviously a surprise ending, and I can't give it away.
Okay, don't give it away.
I can't give it away because it's kind of fun. But let's just say that when people follow the instructions, there are surprising things that happen that most would not have expected.
I like that. I like that. And are you going to have a sequel to this book?
Well, that depends on whether my wife's going to let me write another one, because we've been married for 25 years, and you probably know it takes a lot of time and effort to do these.
It certainly. Did you want to show a cover of your book there? Can you just show the book?
The book, I don't actually have the hardcover because it's in digital
Can you show it on the computer?
If people go to www.starseed-revolution.com.
Okay, Neil will pull that up. Yeah.
You can actually see the cover of the book.
Well, I'm really happy you're joining us this weekend. This is at Starseed Revolution.
Yes, if you go down a bit, you'll see the cover. There it is. That's the cover of the book.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So Richard Horowitz is going to be a featured speaker at this weekend's Starseed Summit, and he's a half Arcturian prince in another lifetime. Which is great. Why only half Arcturian? Oh, because you're half human, half Arcturian.
Because I'm genetically modified. I don't want to go through all of it, but I'm genetically modified.
Well, I am too. Maybe this is not a fiction book. This might be an actual nonfiction book. So,
well, knowing your story, Alan, who knows? There may be more fact than fiction going on here.
And it's funny you say that. Neil was just talking about being an Arcturian yesterday to Linda Batman. So, maybe, Neil, you're one of the starseeds here to help the planet.
I feel so. Yeah, that was one of the first terms I really resonated with like 16 years ago, just being a starseed in general. And we're going to go into it, like there's going to be a good amount of people bringing a different angle of this awareness. So I'm excited just to learn over the next few days.
And tell your neighbor, what's her name, to tune in. Maybe she could even say a few words on her panel. You're
talking Margaret Donor, who wrote the Starseed books?
Yeah, Margaret. Yeah.
I can let her know about it and that I discussed it. So I'll see if she can come on.
Okay. Yeah, she probably has some good things to say too. Well, Richard, thank you. Can people also see you for medical treatments as well?
They can. I mean, we're not taking that many new patients, but we do still take patients. And for people that are interested, it's the Hudson Valley Healing Arts Center in Hyde Park, New York. The medical website, by the way, is cangetbetter.com.
Can Get Better, yes. Because
my first science book was Why Can't I Get Better? It was a New York Times bestseller. The next book was How Can I Get Better? That was a national bestseller. So the website is cangetbetter.com. So if people need to contact me, they can go to that website and all the information is there.
Right, but it's really fun also being a writer, isn't it? And doing
Alan, I have to tell you that creative process, with the idea also of like helping people, not just writing for creative, but like helping, because like you maybe can just make a real difference in the world. Because when you leave this planet, I mean, all we're going to take with us is the amount of love, the amount of wisdom, the amount of good we've done for the world. So it's so much fun to be able to do it this way in a creative way. I love it.
Yeah. No, I think being creative is the most fun way of being on Earth. You know, if we're going to.
And you and I are what, 3 days apart? We figured out.
We're born 3 days apart, Neil. Me and Richard, we almost have the same astrology.
In
Brooklyn, yes, we have almost the same astrology, almost the same astrology chart. You know,
same sign too.
Same sun sign, different.
I'm an Aquarius with an Aquarius rising. If you want to figure out who that being is.
Okay, I'm a Pisces rising, but I'm a Taurus moon. Where's your moon?
Moon in Cancer with a grand water trine, which is where the intuition comes in.
Oh, I think I have an air trine, but anyway. And what are you, Neil? What's your sign?
Scorpio.
Scorpio. They
Great
go
for pulling
deep
it in.
and very deep, very deep.
Mhm.
But Neil, anything else we want to know from Richard before the Starseed Summit coming up?
I think that's it. You've shared your website where people can find out more about you. I'm just excited to, connect with you over this weekend, brother. Thank you so much, Richard.
Yeah. And I'm so happy you're joining us because, like I said, it's nice to have some new faces out there. You're a new, fresh face on the Starseed circuit. So thank you. Thank you, Richard. And good luck with your book. Where can people find the book?
It's on Amazon. It's on pre-order now. Starseed r/evolution, The Awakening.
And you're going to do a big book event when you release the book, right?
Oh, sure. I'm planning. In fact, I'm looking right now. I'm trying to convince my wife to get to Sedona in April.
That's what I was saying. You should tour to Sedona for sure.
I did a book release for my book, in Sedona. I had 250 people there for the official book release in May of last year. So let's do a book release in April in Sedona for Starseed Awakening. We'll put an ad in the paper, get all the local Starseeds. We'll have other people. I had other people come up and speak. Travis Walton spoke, JJ Hurtak, Mark Sims, Bridget Nelson. Bridget Nelson's out there who's a Starseed. Do you know Bridget?
Name's not familiar.
We should have got her for our conference next time, Neil. But yeah, there's everyone. I think there's a little Starseed passport you carry out there in Sedona. So thanks. Say hello to Lee and thank you. And everyone tuning in here on Facebook. Can you put the link in the chat on YouTube, Neil, for the
Yeah. I did it before, but I'll do it one more time. Here you go.
One more time. And Richard Horowitz will be there. You're speaking what day? Do you remember, Richard?
I'm speaking on Sunday at, I think, 2:15.
Great. And you'll also be on the panels Sunday afternoon.
Correct.
And the panels will be streamed on my YouTube and Portal to Ascension YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's without going to the conference. It'll just be streamed.
Yeah. It's going to be a very profound weekend for sure.
Yeah. It's great. It's like a marathon. It's a Starseed marathon.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because I've never attended anything like this before. So for me, this is going to really be a lot of fun.
You know what? No one's attended anything like this before. So that's the special thing about this. Thank you, everybody. Neil, everyone. I have my ET roundtable's coming up tonight for anyone listening on this YouTube channel. Thanks, everybody. Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. Neil Gore, Portal to Ascension. Richard Horowitz, Starseed Revolution. Get it.